Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let Me Talk to My Customer. I'm your host, Chad Counts, along with my co-host, Richard Tyler. Rich, how you doing today?
Great. How are you, Chad?
Man, I can't complain. It is beautiful in sunny Southern California. We are stoked to be here. Thank you to our tech overlords, especially, I forgot to mention Google last week, YouTube, for allowing this speech to go out. So if I run afoul, please just reach out to me personally, and don't take me off of all platforms or anything like that. So we graciously want to stay.
You're not looking to get deplatformed.
No, I'd like to stay within their good graces if I can, if I understood what their means of what their values are, right? And of course, Elon and Jeff Bezos, we give our thank you to you guys for allowing us to exist on this planet. And hopefully if Mars is the next option, you take us with us too. All right. I like to get that out of the way as we're living in a tech world these days. Want to always make sure we give our thank yous to. But in seriousness, thank you to our great customers and listeners, everybody who joins us. Hopefully you enjoy that little bit of brevity that we try to bring each episode. So we've got a great episode for you today. 2021. Off to a similar start to 2020. So, I mean, that I guess is good for us in the salvage world. I think we've got good potential here on the sales front. Having some really, really good results thus far.
Sure.
Seeing good things with our sales staff, sales customers, and we're excited to be training and seeing where everybody's at. And we also know there's been a great deal of wear and tear, even with great sales numbers across the industry. Just the people we're speaking to, everything like that. There's challenges going on, whether it be childcare, whether it be health issues going on, family members. I think the toll of the last year is adding up. And so one of the things that we wanted to talk about and why we're going there today is the cost of motivating by fear. And really just a bigger focus overall on how we motivate, why we do what we do, what our purpose is, what we kind of key in on and center on, what energizes us to keep going day in, day out, week in, week out, to achieve and to persist in trying to be better and accomplish more and set new heights. Because I think ultimately in sales, it can be a lot like being a mailman or a mail person. It just like there's never a day when you're done. There are always more packages to be delivered. There are always more phone calls to answer. There are always more repairs to be done. Right. And so without that grounded motivation and compass, I think it's not surprising, and Rich and I have observed this over the last few years, that we're going to see highs and lows, both in terms of performance and in terms of motivation and where our tank is. So we're going to dive into that a little bit specifically in terms of salvage. But starting off, I think Rich and I just wanted to key in on our own past experiences of what has it been like for us in terms of when we've tried to achieve certain results or been faced with a difficult challenge or obstacle or anything like that, in terms of when people have tried to motivate us through fear, or when people have tried to motivate us through other means. What are some of those differences and how have we experienced that? What was more impactful for us? So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that this morning, just from ourselves. And then we'll dive in specifically to where we've seen that on teams and what we've seen that impact be. So Rich, on your end, thinking back, can you think of any specific things from your past, from your challenges, whether it be health, whether it be sports, school, otherwise, where you were trying to achieve something, achieve certain results, and you had either someone in your life that was trying to motivate you, but it was through the means of fear, or if that was something other, that'd be great too.
Let me think. Motivated by fear. I don't know. I think not that somebody else was trying to motivate me by fear, but I think maybe trying to motivate myself by fear.
If you don't do this, you're going to be
right.
Not enough or Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you say that. I was thinking specifically about like studying in high school, like applying to colleges.
Sure. Sure.
That was the first thing that came to mind when I was like motivation by fear. But that would be more motivating myself, you know?
Okay. Yeah, of where you could potentially end up if you don't achieve this, or if you don't do this, if you don't follow through with your
Yeah.
search. Yeah, I can think through that as well, because a lot of those events in school, whether it be university or whether it be high school, if I failed an individual test or result, which I don't think I did, but um, I always felt like, oh, that's just right now. Is that going to continue for my life, or what impact? You had to have, for me, I had to have some sort of motivation towards delayed gratification, right? Okay, need to do this. It's not that this in itself is the end all be all, but hey, this gets me into school. This gets me to the career I want. This gets me to the salary I want, etc. Right? There was some sort of, if I was trying to motivate myself by fear, I'd probably, fail this test, whatever. I mean, I know in my master's program, there were a lot of teachers like, well, why aren't you pushing to get this AA plus? I'm like, if I get the degree and the license, do I care whether I got a
Right.
85 or a 92?
Right.
For me, no. I just want to get the career and the results, not necessarily, or the career and the opportunity, not necessarily like a result for result's sake. So I think that was where the fear side of them of, I didn't see what the value was in worrying about whether I met their full expectations of this, that, or the other. But I know I had a lot of colleagues and classmates that was them. If they didn't achieve this result, that was very frustrating for them to not achieve the very best. Making a mistake itself was the end all be all there. In my past, I can think sports probably most specifically, and I don't know.
I was thinking about sports as well, but I was thinking those were like the bad coaches, like the coaches that were like,
But
I didn't
but
really.
that exists, right? We have bad coaches, bad managers, bad teachers, things
Sure.
like that, right? Like that's not, I don't think, a rare occurrence. I can definitely think in basketball or soccer of, okay, if we don't hit the result, we're all going to run 10 suicides. We're all going to run this.
Gosh,
It always
oh
felt,
my gosh, you made me have these horrible flashbacks. Yes, I remember.
it always felt very punitive, right? And in a way, I felt like brain wise or habit wise, not that I didn't mind running the laps or the suicides or whatever, because that was good conditioning no matter what, right? That was on the coaching side, I could see there was a benefit to that no matter
Sure.
what.
For sure.
But the consequence of that often felt like whatever you were focused on, not screwing up,
Right.
or not missing the free throw, not missing the free kick, not
Right.
doing that, as opposed to executing what you needed to do to accomplish that, right? Trying to avoid missing a free throw or missing a kick doesn't help you achieve
Right.
making the free throw or making the kick, right? It just gets you to focus on the things that, in my opinion, you shouldn't do. And I think golf swings are a lot that way too. You're trying not to hit it in the water, and what do? Okay, you top
Right.
it right into the pond, and you haven't hit that shot all day, but you get to water, and that's where you go, right? So I think we've all experienced in that, and maybe a little bit of where this concept or thought was coming from is, man, it just felt like in 2020, if you consumed any news, any media, if you heard anything, it just felt like we're all being conditioned by fear, right? Of if you don't do this, the socialists are coming. If you don't do this, then we're all going to be, racist. Or it
Right.
was, I mean, there was no middle ground. There was no like, hey, let's do this so that we can achieve great results together and be better in our society and better to each other.
Everything through a lens of fear, you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And partly we have tech, and I joke about the tech stuff up front, but there are a lot of algorithms driving, whether it be this YouTube platform, whether it be Facebook or Twitter, and those are designed to get us to respond, and not to get us to respond in a way that's beneficial for us in the long run, but just to respond at all, just to engage with their sponsors and their advertisers and things like that. And so what I think a lot of the AI has discovered is, hey, human beings respond really quickly. If I'm looking for a fast response and not a beneficial long-term response, we most respond to fear and pleasure. That is how our brains are wired. And so I want to be mindful of that, because I know at certain points I can get to a place where I'm really negative and really fear-based solely because of what I consume. And if I bring that into work, working with people and motivating people, and my efforts are towards just trying to manipulate them the best as I can to get the best result today, a lot of times I can choose a technique like fear that gets me that result today. And it's very effective of getting that result today. But if that's the only tool I have in my tool belt, I'm going to burn that person out. They're eventually going to not respond as well to fear as they do the first time, or I have to keep increasing my threat level. I have to
Okay,
increase.
so I know what you're talking about. Could you give
Yeah.
us an example? Could you tell us what that sounds like or that looks like?
In terms of our counters,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times it's not that there's even necessarily a specific, like it's a lot easier to think on the tangible and the positive side of there's this specific goal or challenge or contest or thing like that. When I've encountered it within the salvage world or on sales counters, it's typically more threat based. It's like, if we don't, sometimes it stays vague. If we don't achieve this number, if you can't do this today, things are going to change, right? And so it doesn't necessarily have a specific task of, I'm going to write you up, or I'm going to
Right.
home,
Right.
we're going to change your commission structure or salary structure. It's
Right.
not necessarily that, as much as there's this sense of anger or frustration. And if you don't get those results, whether you can control it or not, that there's going to be something to pay, right? And I think we've all experienced, if we had a mom and dad growing up, we experienced that, right? Wait till your father comes home. And there's not like a specific threat to that, but there is this like conditioned fear of, oh, I don't want to talk to dad after a long day and him hearing that, right? So the challenge with that is, even if the messaging stays the same, so let's say I try and use that same technique, right? And that might be very true, right? We're trying to keep the lights on. We're trying to keep everybody paid. There definitely been moments of fear over this last year of what's going to happen. Nobody's driving. What are we going to do? How, are we going to have cars to repair? So I think there is fear out there. The challenge is, if that's my go-to, if that's my only tool belt, I have to keep increasing the threat level to achieve the same results. There is nothing that, especially if I keep fear as a constant tactic, eventually everybody either gets used to that and it loses its effect, or if the fear keeps increasing, I'm going to burn people out, have a high turnover rate. People are going to quit. There's going to be blowback on that. That can't be a long-term strategy. That can't be a long-term culture to having continued growth and success. And so I don't mean to say like you can't ever clue your employees in or your team in on, hey, guys, if we don't do this, there are going to be changes. And I don't want that to happen, right? There's not necessarily a problem with being realistic if that's what you're facing. It's just that shouldn't be your main source or your only tool in motivating people, right? So we've worked with companies across the country and different countries, and some are very results focused and others haven't been. Others have been more maintaining a status quo and different things like that, different techniques, what have you. So Rich, have you encountered, or I guess my description of that fear, is there anything different that you've encountered? Does that seem to be a pretty fair description from what you've seen as well?
I mean, I think that's a fair description. I was thinking about, in particular, I think there's maybe a little bit of difference between somebody who can take what might normally be a motivating fear and interpret that as a challenge, you know?
Yeah, True.
And it's a little bit different that if we're actually making a challenge to someone who responds well to that type of thing.
Sure. Right. Exactly. So I think, yeah, before we came on today, we're talking about that a little bit in terms of our goal whenever we're working with people. We don't use the same tactics with everybody. We don't use the same tactics with every company. We try and be very specific in our approach with each of the people.
Mhm.
And there are definitely certain salespeople that do not take, shocking newsflash, there are employees in our stead that do not take criticism well, right? Or even suggestions well, right? So it goes both ways. And one of the challenges in working with employees that don't take criticism well or suggestions well is, well, I've still got to get some change from it. I still got to get them to move through. And so one of the things we've seen from high achievers that are maybe flatlining or not performing at a level that we like is a little bit to put their ego on the line. And you don't really have to be that big of a jerk about it. You just say, man, so and so, your numbers are right here. You see what the other guys are doing?
Right.
I know you're better. You almost like turn around. It's like, I know you can do better than that. What's going on here? I thought you were the top dog. I thought you were so and so. And a lot of times, just playing to this is not. I think you're better than this is almost the route you go,
Right.
and that pushes them to say, well, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, and ante up and put their ego on the line with how they step up. Right.
I was trying to wonder. I mean, I was wondering, is that motivation by fear? Maybe not. That's more motivation by challenge.
Yeah, I think it's you kind of let them answer the question because I'm not confirming that statement. I'm not saying you're not as good as I thought you were.
Right.
Right. I'm turning it into a question of, man, has there been a changing of the guard? Is this person now the new top dog? Right. Like putting that question out there and giving them a chance to respond. And part of that is we see that time and time again. Salary compensation can be very similar to fear compensation. Of if somebody is making the same thing ongoing, you really have to find something within that person. And sometimes that's good. A lot of people want to have that consistent pay and not worry about it and that sort of thing. So I'm
Mhm.
not saying that that's bad. What I'm saying is if that is stale and stagnant, you need to be able to communicate and motivate them on a personal level, on a character level, on a purpose level, more
Uh-huh.
so than a money level, because that's not going to change. Or maybe you have sales contests that kind of offset that a little bit, or things like that, bonuses or different things.
Right.
Okay, so there are a lot of tools, and now that I always think this is important to examine on the outset of a year. We all have a lot of goals we want to achieve. We have a lot of things we want to accomplish, and initially, just depending on your upbringing or what you've experienced in the past, you may only know how to motivate people by fear, per chance, or just by challenging them, as opposed to using recognition, using contests. Right. For me, competition is the best way, because I think you can refresh it, you can change it, you can make it new, and it's always fun to compete. But that's not everybody. There are other people that to lose is too big of a chance, right? And it can turn into fear based. And so you have to figure out with the people on your team what they're going to respond to. And I'm definitely not in the one size fits all camp. I want to see each person achieve their best. I want to see each person do that. So far, this has been more of geared towards owners and managers on this episode. I do want to bring this up for Rich. I think as individual salespeople, we control our attitudes, we can control our approach, and we can even do things to motivate ourselves, right? Just like you were talking about going through school, I could choose more fear-based for myself and challenging them. Oh, what am I doing here? Or am I going to fail this test or what have you? What do you see amongst the people that we've worked with over these last few years, how they kind of turn back in and motivate themselves? Is that something that, and I don't think we have to do that with a lot of salespeople. I think there are a handful that, especially their motivation is kind of the key to, it's not even technique so much as figuring out where their fire is lit is the big ticket to getting them to keep performing at a higher level.
Right. I'm thinking that's different for a lot of different people. I mean, I know I've mentioned on this podcast several times that I know I have lots of, well, there's two successful salespeople that I work with that have like a very regimented, like meditation or prayer or quiet time uh, to start their day. You know, I know we mentioned that before. There's another one that I'm thinking of that he's got a company goal that's set for him bi-monthly, and
Hmm.
he has a personal goal which he establishes for himself, which is more important than the company goal, and it's always higher than whatever the company goal is.
Love that.
Even if it's higher by just like $1,000 or something,
Yeah.
it's always higher than whatever the bar is that's actually set for him.
Well, let me put it this way. Maybe this is another way we kind of spotlight it too. So, would you say the high performers, high achievers that we've been able to work with,
Yeah.
are they attuned with what motivates them, or are
Oh,
they oblivious to what
no,
motivates?
no, no, no. They're definitely attuned to it. They're
Yeah.
definitely attuned to it. And those are the people that you can also just ask, like, you know, I just hear something's off. What is it? Oh yeah, it's this. And you know, I need to work through this in order to, you know,
Yeah,
get
you
back.
don't sound as energized. You don't sound as
Right, exactly.
positive or solution. Yeah, and they like, you know what? Yep, you're right. That's spot on, and they are. It resonates with them, right?
Yeah,
They seem to
exactly.
have a good sense of themselves, not just from a numbers or performance standpoint, but where they're at in terms of motivation individually and taking care of themselves. Um, and that was the other impetus for me on talking about this. As I don't know that all. I think we're blessed to be able to work with a number of companies and demographics, et cetera. And I think there's a lot of employees that we've been pleased to work with that maybe just haven't had that mentor in their life or haven't had that person that can come alongside and say, hey, I'm here with you. Like your success is my success. I want to
Mhm.
buy into you. I want to see what we can do to push you to new heights. Um, because our top performers maybe already have that or already found that. But I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of people that have the raw potential and have
Mhm.
just needed somebody to come in alongside them, maybe some mentorship or something like that. And even for our owners and managers, right? You might be an owner or a manager, not necessarily because that's your skill or your gift, but because you've been blessed with the opportunity in your family to be able to do that. Um, and maybe that's something that needs to be brought into your company, right? To be able to help them to see within themselves what they're capable of. And there's some people we've worked with, they're not even open to that, right? We want to open their eyes to that, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go there. Don't really think that's important. Don't think that matters. And more often than not, those are the people that are stuck, and those are the people that aren't moving forward. And hey, you know, if you don't want to help yourself, if you don't want to improve, you're not personally motivated. There's very little I can do to sustain your improvement or growth going forward, right? So there are a lot. There is a lot to this. And I think it's important. I think we're all facing this. We're all challenged by this on a monthly basis. Our worlds are different, what we can go out to do. Obviously, California, where I'm at, we're right back in the thick of being locked down again. So, I mean, these are challenges. It's things we think about as a family. There's things we think about for our employees and our teams out there. And we do. We honestly want the best for you. We want to see the results, want to see success, want to see it sustained. I don't want to just shortcut, have a nice uptick, and then we slide or we break down right back the other way.
Right.
So when we talk about this, we're trying to talk about it from a number of different levels, both from an employee or from an owner manager standpoint. If you are the employee, this is valuable to you, whether it be at night, whether it be on the weekends. To think through, where are you at? Why is your performance where it's at? And you can do a lot to blame. Maybe inventory is not as good, or we're not getting the calls, or something external is happening. And those might be true, and that's fine. I'm not saying those aren't true, but you being able to look within yourself and figure out what are the things that you can control. to put you in the best position to succeed. That's ultimately what we're after. The circumstances around us, politically, religiously, culturally, with this virus, everything like that, those are always going to change, and they're going to be fluid. If you're going to be resilient, if you're going to respond no matter what the situation, you have to have some sense of who you are, what motivates you, and what you're driven to achieve on a daily basis, but also on a long-term basis, right? So your hope can persist, so you can go through those difficult times as opposed to burning out and not being able to come back. So I know this was a little bit of a different content or episode from some of the other ones we've done in the past, but I think it's no less important. And I think for me, for whatever reason, this was just something that's been on my brain the last few weeks.
So.
And I think it's a challenge. I think we hate seeing what fear is doing in other people's lives. I know there's a lot of mental health challenges right now, or just basic challenges that we're all facing. And some of that maybe we're all weighed down by what we're consuming so much. So make those choices to find people that are positive and hopeful and optimistic in your life. Find those things, exercise, meditation, prayer, whatever that may be, that can get you back centered and hopeful and persist through these challenging times. Because we always know that. We always know that there are going to be challenging times ahead. There's no exceptions to that. We're all going to face that. Mm-hmm. How we face that, what tools we bring to battle that's what's going to make a difference in how well we sustain going forward. So that's it for today. We thank you guys for hanging in there and joining with us and being a part of it. We've been just overjoyed to be a part of the successes we have been. And for all of you who are just we haven't gotten to work with, but our listeners out there, we hope you're doing well. And if there's anything we can do as a company, Counts Business Consulting, or personally, Chad Counts on Facebook or LinkedIn. Rich is on LinkedIn as well. Reach out to us if you have a question, what we can do to assist you guys. We'd love to hear that. So we hope all you are doing well and wish you nothing but the best. And again, of course, our tech overlords, thank you for letting us stick in here and have this podcast as long as it can last. So thank you all so much.